Howdy, folks. Nick Tucker here. Oh, wait. I think I might be muted. Nope, I'm good. Okay, howdy, folks. Nick Tucker here with the Historical Fencing Guild. Tonight, we're looking for another episode of Insomniac Weapon Trainer Review, where we'll be talking about this. Upside down. This is the Leatherneck SF Trainer by Cold Steel. Now, why am I talking about this trainer? Well, before I can talk about this trainer, I need to talk about this knife. This, also upside down, it's almost like I grabbed him off the pile that way, is the Ontario, basically mini K-bar. It was based on an Air Force pilot model of the, ubiquitous K-bar survival knife. It is a saw-backed, weighted survival knife of the old style, de-stacked leather hilt. People are used to this. Thank you for the like. Let me see if I can fix my chat real quick because it's doing the invisible chat. Cool. Alrighty. I talk very often, if you follow my show or not, about train with what you carry and carry what you train with. What that means is, well, like what I'm going to get into. For many years, and to this day, if I'm going out in the woods, I'm going out in a survival EVS. Hey, Silver, I don't know what EVS is. This is just an Insomniac. I'm up and I got done with another stream, so I thought I'd do this. This is the knife that saved my life. Not only is this the knife that saved my life, this is the knife that brought me out of the most idiotic thing I have ever done. What do I mean? I was in an instance where at extreme close range, an intoxicated individual attempted to pull a gun on me. We collided in a campyard bathroom. He went for his gun. My knife was faster. I did not hurt this person, but I did intimidate them into rethinking their life. Someday I'll tell the details. I may have told it before. I may tell it again. But this knife this very blade has literally saved my life. Because had I not had it, given that man's state, he would have cleared leather and shot me. I am very good at reading people. This got him to stop by simply, at the time, I was young and I was fast. And I got this out and against his neck and my hand over his holster before he could clear leather and discharge his weapon. I persuaded him then to choose a different path, and he did. We both walked out of there alive, and after some further excitement... Okay, cool. After some further excitement, I evaded the whole situation. But at the end of the day, I accidentally walked into what could have been a gunfight with a knife, and I won. I call that a win and sheer chance. So, this is that. Why am I not talking about that? I say train with what you have. This is as close an representative trainer as I found. They both have very round grips. This is a bit longer as it's based on a different but similar knife. But allegorically, they handle similar, they grip similar, and it's the best I could find. So we have the Leatherneck SF Trainer by Cold Steel. Anybody who favors the older style of survival/tactical knives, this is a good trainer. It has some points to it that really need to be discussed, and it is frankly, at a price point that makes it pretty much inexcusable if you're planning to carry something like this. What do I mean? Well, to get ahead of myself, this thing costs about $10. You can find it for less on our good buddy Amazon. There are other retailers. This trainer has surprised me because it does move and feel very similar to this style. Of course, it is lighter. That is the cost of switching from steel to polypropylene. But why do I recommend this trainer? If that's one, this is as close an anagram to my knife as I could find, so it's good to train with it. Two, if you like rounder, thick-bodied knives, and you can tell I use it because it has dirt from practices, that has not. I need to wash my trainer box again. They all got messed up from the flood. But as you can see, very round hilt. Now, longtime fans know when the hilt or the grip of a knife is round, I normally say stay away. Edge alignment becomes a problem. Now, this is the outside of thickness that I, with my braces now, can hold comfortably, but it's still functional. What makes it so is it has two very important features. First, from the top down, this tapering of the grip. This gives you a limited, even when you're in full ice pick, it gives the option of various grips, but it prevents rotation. It is very similar to that. I believe the dissimilar for the Kǎijié is because of copyright. This may be a bit of a Kǎijié knockoff. I have to look at modern ones because I'm used to this guy, which is one of my back when I hiked religiously. This was an EDC if I was going in the woods. You could baton with this. It has a very aggressive back saw, which, as you can see, one thing I tell you when you're talking to somebody who's talking about a knife, there are two things I look for when they're talking about any knife, and we're talking real steel here. You want to see that it's been maintained. This is clean, but the slight discoloration is, but it's been used. Now, this for the striations, that's for me sharpening pencils. I didn't know the graphite would damage the coating, and I don't know if it damaged it or just sort of bonded with it. But I would go on art kind of safaris. I would take my sketchbook, a bunch of old style drawing pencils, and I would sharpen them with the knife I was carrying. This was before I fell in love with neck knives. So this is what I brought. It was deep in the realm of overkill for what I was using, but I carried it everywhere for a time. And I maintained it. I have carried it. You can see where from use. That's not lack of good treatment. I've used this to saw things to see how it works. The saw is a little wide, but it can do some neat things. It's better for cutting like ropes, I find, than most sawing applications because it's a wide profile. So for small stuff, notching things especially, it's faster to right angle it. So you go and you get a nice clean V notch, which is very useful for trapping and bushcraft purposes. But we're not reviewing this knife today, although we kind of have. I don't carry it anymore because it's heavy and it's a bit excessive for what I need. But I wanted a knife, since I was carrying it, that was an anagram. It was something similar. And for knife fighting, if you want a knife that feels like a tactical knife, and there are thousands of models of bootleg, tactical / survival knives, roughly with this, I want to say 8-inch blade, that have this feel. So this is a good generic trainer at a low cost. It is made of the same either santoprene or polypropylene that cold steel is famous for. It has a modicum of flex, more for maintenance, and it will eventually let go of that curve. It's not a thrusty like fencing work, but it is very good for knife fighting training sessions, especially as long as you're wearing protection. I know many people who will take red lipstick and they will line this outer edge because the edge profile is quite wide, so that you can not only can you track if someone gets cut, understanding this will damage clothing, so you might want to throw a Tyvek suit over it or wear disposable clothing, but it will show where you've been cut so that you can look back at yourself later in photographs or whatever and know exactly where you missed your block. This is a very, very handy trainer. It is a very good backup trainer. And why do I say backups? I want to talk about that. I have a lot of knife trainers, and it confuses some of the people who are like, Nick, you teach historical. Yes, I do. I teach historical knives. I'm going to ask you something. This is a different trainer I'll talk about another day. It's also, if I go like this, very close to a CX. Yes, the Tanto style tip is very popular, Ogre. And again, if you're watching this video, please turn on the live chat, not the top chat, the live chat, so you can follow, because I respond to my guests. I'm not one of those people who pontificate, although I do pontificate anyway. Tanto style knives are considered easier to sharpen, and they're really quite in vogue these days. Whereas I personally prefer a spear point or a drop point or a clip point. You know, obviously, to run a similarity thing, I kind of like this style of blade geometry. I still prefer the thicker on the front because it's stronger, but this is a very agile, it makes for a very slicey knife. And there are applications where you're doing controlled work where being able to only use the back and not worry so much can be beneficial. It's all about knowing the knife. And should somebody who hasn't been on this channel, this sheath is not meant for this knife. I bought this knife many, many years ago when the hardware store that I bought it from was being bought out. They had to sell all their stock of non-related things. This was on display for a bunch of years, and they had long since lost the sheath. So they gave me the only sheath they had to safely get it out of there. And while this is obviously not the right sheath, it's let me carry it with adjustment over the years. Let me put the other live steel away. So they're very good, very beneficial. If you're going to train in knife fighting, there are two schools. There's the don't get cut school and the accept you're going to get cut school. I tend to straddle that line in that expect it, but try to train to minimize it. There are a lot of people who will teach sacrificial defensive techniques. You know, parry into the knife with your offhand to make the opening to do something. I don't like that. I prefer weapon evasion and redirection over that whenever possible. Because if you're unarmed and you are dealing with an armed person, I don't care what martial art you have. I don't care how bad you are operating at a baseline disadvantage. That's why people use knives instead of their fists. And that's why, you know, longer knives reach farther, axes may reach farther and hit harder. You know, projectiles trump that. When I get talking about something like this, I get very practical very quickly. And this is a knife, so it's defensively, it's very limited. It's much more meat-to-meat blocks. So you don't want to catch the knife, you want to block the forearm, catch or control the wrist, redirect the knife out, and deal with the person while controlling the weapon. There are a lot of flashy disengages that look really cool with compliant targets, but I really encourage you to get knives, and if you can do so safely, especially once you have some training, try those disengages. Again, especially with that lipstick trick. If you're looking for that aggressive knife style training, one, you need an aggressive knife style. So this, my beloved FE9, I have some others. The Laredo will probably come out in another video real soon. But this is a great, what I consider 8 inches is a very magical length in a knife blade. And no, I'm not kidding. But guys, let's not be funny. This is still to me work knife capable. And that's important. Because as soon as you get up to something like a Laredo, you know, a big Bowie, it starts to get harder to control for fine actions. This I can still do whittling with without, I'm not there's if I'm whittling and I'm carving away with a knife this long, and I actually favor shorter, I'm not worried about the edge. Like, could I take this is just farcical for a moment, but my beloved Bilbao, could I theoretically whittle and do stuff with this if it were sharp all the way to the base? Certainly. But I have all this steel flailing around, which both becomes a safety issue and in an improvised structure can be problematic. Exactly, Ogre. Ogre says, and I'm speaking to Sylvar Ogre, who's one of my Patreon members. He's a wonderful gentleman, and he's why I could do videos just like this for you guys. He's saying, avoid the fight, avoid the knife, fighting that, control the limb, control the person and the blade. Yes, and that's the you should always be looking for de-escalation, range, and distance. A knife is still a fairly up close and ugly weapon. A lot of people also don't understand how easy it is to get in a knife engagement. And case study after case study, with the adrenaline up, people don't. They're like, "Oh, you won't." With the adrenaline up, you won't feel the cuts on your arms anyway. And I hear this a lot. The problem is you also won't acknowledge the kidney stab till you bleed out. You might not. There are a lot of cuts and stabs that are life-threatening in moments after receiving them, that because of the adrenaline jog and what the human body does to deal with wounds and your fight or flight, it short circuits. It's very strange. So you want to respect the knife and respect. That's why I'm a big fan of something like the lipstick trick. I am not a knife fighter guy because I don't like knife fighting. I know that sounds odd, but bear with me. Knife fighting is practical. It's a necessary thing, and it's usually deadly intent. Now, I never carried this as intending as a weapon. I carried it because it was big enough to baton. And yet, you know what? I might have, in foolishness and youth, thought about carrying this as a weapon, but not the ramifications. To this day, I'm so glad I didn't have to use this knife the next step. I can see that. I can close my eyes right now and see that gentleman's face. I probably could draw it. It's been nearly 15 years. Dang. Around 15 years. I'd have to ask my wife to know exactly when. But I can still see it. I can still smell his pee. I'm so glad I didn't have to cut a guy. Because I told him at the time, I'll never forget it. Can we be cool? Can we just be cool? And we had a moment where we understood. And later he had other ideas and there was issue. But I just remember being tired because I don't like violence and I don't like hurting people. That's why I talk about knives. You'll notice I talk about knives in a different tone. Respect the weapon, respect what it means. Because this should be a tool. I should be using something like this to improvise a structure, make a survival bow, cut and whittle on a hiking stick, baton something to get firewood. For me, a survival style knife is about that. It's about survival. And I hate that knives as tools have to be weaponized. I know that's silly, and I know that's a pacifism that most people don't accept. And that's okay. I'm silly. I've long since given up. But if you're going to play at it, or you're going to train, take it serious. Train with the right tools. Train with the right mindset. When I fence, I'm playing patty cake most of the time. It's sword patty cake. When I pull a knife like this to fight with, it's a different mentality. So, got a little philosophical here, but what do I have to say about this? This is one of those where you throw, if you like this style knife, and they're, K-bar is the ubiquitous favorite. It's very close. It's not perfect, but if you like this style knife, the Leatherneck SF Trainer by Cold Steel is just that. It is a great training knife. It handles well between the molding, which, let me get that. You see that it's textured, not just with the rings, but the actual grip texture. This will handle wet well. It handles sweaty hands well. It handles gloves well. It moves well for the people who like reverse grip more. It transitions well. And it, on a joke, it will throw pretty well. Obviously, it won't penetrate, but there was a question, so I basically went to see if I could get the tip to hit a target, and at that point I could. Now with my hands, I don't know if I could, and that's a different thing. But if you like this style knife, it's $10. That's with Prime shipping, so snag it. If you like what I'm talking about and you want a practical, if humorous approach to the Western martial arts, consider The Simple Sword by Nicholas Tucker. This is the first in a series of books I'm writing about fencing, about learning how to make a sword go. The second in that series, which is now kind of beat up because this is one I've actually used to train people and hand out, so it's taken some abuse, is the Fighting Axe. Again, what I do is I take complex, often vocabulary-heavy techniques that have been translated from foreign languages and distill them, go over different ones. That's how I made, 15 years of work went into The Simple Sword to teach people the basics. So that's what I'm about. And I do a live stream every Friday at 8 o'clock Eastern Time, 7 o'clock Central for the people north. And we talk swords, we talk techniques. I answer questions from people like Ogre, and I recommend or I dissuade. There are some products I'll say, please don't buy this. This show, the Insomniac Weapon Review, happens whenever I can't sleep, and I just pop on for usually less than a half hour, talk about whatever weapon. This one comes with a bit of a special story, and cold steel knives are ubiquitous. They tell you that they all handle very similar. They have very sturdy, little hard, slightly aggressive points. This is just what to expect. So match what you're training. It doesn't have to be perfect. This and this are not perfect analogs. Obviously, this is downsized. So if I play with the scale a bit, I can make them look the same, even though they're actually quite shorter. But you can see it's proportionately the same design. This is as close as they came to making it, so I train with this. If there's any specific trainers you want me to talk about, especially if you've seen them in my collection, hit me in the comments. If you want to keep me doing what I'm doing, consider becoming just like Sylvar Ogre and joining the Patreon, where just $1 a month helps me keep this going so I can do product reviews for you, and I can help train people with severe mental and emotional difficulties, sometimes adapt for physical needs, much like I have to now, and keep bringing the Western martial arts to the people who might not be able to afford it any other way. Until I see you next time, folks, keep your guard up, keep your eyes open, and listen to your heart. And as always, support your local swordmaster.